Just quickly, right down the line, start with you, Mr. Dodds. Why do you think that there haven't been more? Is it lack of money? What's the problem?
Chairman Towns, as we all collectively mentioned, we've put an enormous amount of resources to make sure that we open this up to as many trial modifications as possible based on stated income as opposed to verified income. So we really opened the door to as many people as we could.
So how long should it take for the trial modification?
I'm sorry?
How long should that take? If you put trial modification, how long should it take?
It takes city about 4 months, which happens to be amongst the fastest in the industry. But I don't believe we have 3 trial payments, and then that converts to a modification, a permanent modification after that. But to answer your question, Chairman, I believe that the reason the permanent mods are not as high as we would expect them to be is because in many cases the documents that actually come in don't match with what was stated at the time of the trial modification, and many borrowers were not able to make the trial payments. Those have been, I would say, the 2 principal reasons for the fallout.
Mr. Sura?
Under the HAMP program, the primary reason are 40% of the borrowers who have been in a trial modification have failed to make a payment. And I think that's reflective of the ongoing stress of the economy on those borrowers. And I think it is important to look at the number of permanent modifications holistically. And when you look at our number, HAMP is a small number of a much larger total of the 630,000 modifications. To understand that it's one of many tools that we use for borrowers.
Mr. Freeman, same question to you.
In our particular situation, we service a lot of loans that just don't qualify under the HAMP guidelines, such as a conforming loan or non-conforming loans. We may have certain restrictions under servicer guidelines, but the vast majority of the real issue is really that we are so limited under this 31% debt-to-income test, and the fact that in our particular book of business, the borrower must occupy the property as their principal place of residence. So, and then also the documentation issue. You know, we initially up front had done always verification and requested documents up front. So once we've got a borrower into a plan, we have a very high conversion rate. But again, it's a lot of this is on the borrower side as well, or the complexities of the program itself.
What I'd like to add is I think context is important here. When you think about the 500,000 mods Wells Fargo has done, about 80% of those are outside of the HAMP program, and the vast majority of those are permanent mods already or on their way to becoming permanent mods. Inside the HAMP program, inside the 20%, the primary factors in terms of converting from trial to permanent are the same Treasury quoted in their report. Lack of documentation because of the stated income programs of last summer. That has since changed. Once documents are received, customers are not eligible for the program and therefore go through a cancellation phase and you typically get a modification outside of the HAMP program. And then finally, customers that just don't make the 3 trial payments within the HAMP program itself are the 3 primary HAMP factors. But I would encourage you to continue to keep focus on the fact that the vast majority of mods getting done are happening outside the HAMP program itself.
Mr. Lohman, real quick.
Just echoing the same thing that my compatriots here have spoken about. Missed payments and no documents returned from borrowers are the major reasons why modifications don't get completed. About a third of those that do give us documents and do in fact make the payments, a third of the total population ultimately end up in a mod.
When you say no, you don't get the documents, I mean, is it a lack of communication? You know, because a person.
Well, we've made extensive refinements in our process, including communicating with borrowers and writing them letters and knocking on doors and what have you. That process obviously has evolved over time. I would say at the beginning of the program that may have been the case, but I would say now we're equipped to adequately communicate with borrowers.
Is communication a problem for, just very quickly, yay, nay? Could you sort of tell me?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the issue is actually, as you sort of analyze the contact rates, it seems to us that at a late stage of delinquency, a lot of customers have a very low contact rate, primarily because they may have checked out from the process. So this needs early interventions really critical.
Yeah. Is there anything that we need to do? Because, people are losing their homes, and I just can't see if a person is losing his or her house that they're not going to cooperate in terms of documentation. Because, they're asking for help, and that's the part I don't quite understand.
Maybe a couple of examples might help. I think there's a lot going on when a customer's in fear of losing their home, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. A couple of the documents that are troublesome is that the HAMP program does require a tax return. I think that conjures up fears that will that trigger an IRS audit. Those kinds of things are very real in people's minds. The HAMP modification agreement itself is a very intimidating looking piece of paper. It's 5 pages, single-spaced, very intimidating, very scary kind of process that I think people are reluctant or fearful to carry, what else might happen here. So I don't think it's the communication between servicer and homeowner that's at issue here. I don't think there's additional things that you should and can do. I think this is really now a matter of working very diligently and very hard with every single customer to make sure that foreclosure does not happen.